The devs of an upcoming indie Souls-like challenged me with early access to their demo. I used to be known for speedrunning. Back when I was much younger and looked and sounded like a lost child, I was invited to play at Games Done Quick, a charity event featuring live speedruns, and I performed in front of a live online audience of around 100,000 people, only 3 of which were my direct family members. Thanks, Mom. I used to speedrun a lot of 2D side-scrolling games, and I pioneered the speedrun for a 2D Souls-like called Salt and Sanctuary, taking the world record time early on and setting up a leaderboard for others to post their claims. 9 years later, and I got an email from the developers of a new game, Vapor World, who found me for my speedruns of Salt and Sanctuary, some of which are still buried deep in my YouTube channel to this day. I'm assuming they contacted me not to just play their demo, but to crush it in 10 minutes and make it look way easier than it actually is. I'm not doing any kind of paid ad for this game, but they did offer me a Steam key of the full release if I played through the demo, and I am very easily motivated by the allure of free stuff. The game's combat draws a lot of inspiration from Sekiro. You can wear down an enemy's guard with successive attacks, and deflecting their blows with perfectly timed blocks is the fastest way to break their stance and go in for a one-hit kill. The game is currently attempting to teach me how to do that, but I'm disrespecting the level by rolling through the enemies like any good Souls speedrun. You can also one-shot enemies that you successfully sneak up on, but it's not worth the time spent doing so. Hilariously, you don't need to be particularly stealthy. You can sprint at enemies that are facing away from you and go into the backstab animation right before they turn around. I'm coming up on a mini-boss, and it's going to get a bit messy since I never stopped to fight anything and the enemies are starting to catch up with me. If they desynchronize their attacks, I won't be able to get a hit in, so I group them up alongside the boss and wait for an opportunity to beat up all 3 at once while trying to dodge any counterattacks. The big bar in the top middle of the screen represents the guard gauge of the main boss. If I can fill that up, I can take down one of his 2 health bars in a single blow. My own guard gauge pops up in the bottom middle of the screen if I've blocked any attacks recently, and our respective health bars are off to the left. I swung my hammer like a maniac for the first phase of the boss while I was still dealing with his flunkies, but he's going to be more aggressive going forward, and I'll need some finesse to quickly fill up his guard meter in the second phase. The big thing I'm watching for is I'm waiting for him to unleash a huge 5-hit combo. If you can time multiple perfect blocks to deflect several swings in a row, his guard will break almost immediately, which you can see me do here, turning his offense into my offense, letting me take him down as soon as he finishes swinging. Since I'll just be running through the enemies for the next minute before dying on purpose to teleport out of the introductory zone, I'll mention now how much I really enjoyed this game's atmosphere. The premise of the game is that you're navigating an artificial reality created by dreams, and the misty expanse paired with the rocks gently floating towards the sky in this segment really did sell me on the dreamlike vibe, and I definitely paused just to look around at the scenery pretty much everywhere I went on my first time for the demo. You're actually meant to lose to this guy up ahead. Dying to him transports you to where the real game starts, a trope seen in several Souls-likes. I'm sure it's possible to win, but he has extremely high health and is very aggressive. You don't have access to any form of healing yet, and losing to him means creating a brand new save file to try again every single time. If I had access to a checkpoint, I really would have tried beating him for fun, but it's really annoying to learn the timings to deflect his attacks when taking a loss is such a setback. The game occasionally has long loading screens like this. According to the developers, they did it so that transitions between areas is completely seamless once you're running around the greater world. This is the slowest part of the speedrun since you need to chat with an NPC before you're allowed to leave, who gives you the game's equivalent of the Estus Flask from Dark Souls, before going on at length about the game's lore and setting, but the rest of her dialogue can be skipped for speedrun purposes once you get to the part with dialogue choices. Just like in Souls games, checkpoints fill up your HP and restore your healing items, plus you can freely fast travel between them. Since I didn't stop at the checkpoint indoors, I'm actually considerably damaged right now, as you spawn in with very low HP as part of the tutorial on how to heal with your pipe, which also drained it entirely of uses. On my first playthrough of the demo, I found you can upgrade your healing pipe's capacity, and there's some kind of skill tree for leveling up your character. So the game will have RPG-style progression elements in it, but I'll be completing my run of the demo without ever leveling up or even using the healing pipe outside of the forced tutorial. There's something I really appreciate about this game's visual clarity in combat. Look at this grieving widow that stands up and attacks me. It happens when she's kind of off-screen to the left, but her eyes glow bright red, and that signifies an unblockable attack you need to dodge by rolling or dashing. And every enemy I found with an unblockable attack did the same thing. It made it very obvious which attacks you should attempt to dodge and which ones you can try to deflect. You could just dodge everything instead of learning how to deflect, but deflecting is really valuable since landing one directly deals considerable damage, and it's really not a big deal to miss the timing since pressing the button too early means you just get a normal guard instead, which isn't a bad thing. Plus, it's kind of fun. Now, I can just run through all of the enemies in this section, but there's a huge problem. The game introduces riflemen that will take potshots at you from off-screen if you don't stop to deal with them first, and you can't block or deflect while facing away from him, and it's honestly pretty easy to get shot in the back even if you're spamming dodge roll. Since I skipped an earlier checkpoint, I'm pretty much forced to take the next checkpoint to heal as I'm required to take damage in a cutscene later. Finding a strategy to deal with these rifle shots without slowing down would be a great way to save a few seconds. Now, I spent a while just running through the enemies, so it's time to introduce an actual speedrun trick I found to skip a difficult mini-boss. Once I talk to an NPC up ahead, I'll get attacked and take some unavoidable damage, starting a fight against a very aggressive enemy. However, as a mini-boss, he only has a single bar of health, so he'll die immediately if I can land a decisive blow, which you're supposed to do by parrying his attacks until you eventually break his guard. But I found a little trick to skip the fight. If you lure him over to the right and die while attempting to activate the checkpoint will still activate while de-aggroing the boss when you respawn. Now, you still do need to defeat the boss, but he faces to the left by default, and I'm now approaching from the right, and I can attempt to go for a stealth kill. The developers did see this coming. The boss will dodge your stealth kill attempts by jumping back as soon as he notices you, but if you approach at a sprint and start the stealth kill as early as possible, it'll land the blow right before he would have gone invincible and dodged it. Now, if you do get your hands on the demo, please try this fight for real because it's really fun and successfully deflecting gunfire makes you feel like you're in the Matrix. Plus, since there's a checkpoint right next to the boss, you really don't feel bad for losing. Just try again. With the Hunter mini-boss down, all I need to do now is get a key from this NPC and I can go fight the area boss, which is where the demo ends. There won't be any tricks to defeat him easily, I'll just have to deflect all of his attacks to deal as much damage as possible without taking any in return, since I've skipped opportunities to level up and upgrade my healing pipe. There's an in-game timer shown at the end I'm going to use to determine how fast my speedrun went, and it always comes out faster than the real time you spent playing the game. Probably because it doesn't count loading screens. If I were serious about aiming for and claiming a world record in a speedrun, I would just show a timer on screen that started back at file creation. But this is just something I did for fun since I was asked to give the game a whirl, and I enjoyed the demo enough to play it through multiple times until I got good at it. I'm definitely looking forward to the game's full release so I can play the rest. I might even stop to fight the enemies. I'm coming up on the boss Edmund. I get to whack him repeatedly for free while he's monologuing, which does a big chunk of HP damage, but not very much damage to his guard. The boss likes to block your attacks, so not many of them will get through and land on his health bar, and even deflecting his attacks doesn't slow him down to where you'd get an opening to strike on his health. You can reliably deflect his attacks whenever he raises his cane into a guard. Striking his guard twice always baits him to deflect your second swing and then immediately counterattack, and that consistent, predictable timing of his return strike makes it pretty easy to deflect him back, which goes a long way towards breaking his guard and opening him up for the lethal strike. I got lucky in the first phase. He only stopped once to do an unblockable attack, and dodging those is a big waste of time. Although they do leave openings to where you may be able to kill the first phase off of raw HP damage, thanks to the free hits you get at the start of the fight. After beating the crap out of his guard and deflecting a half dozen attacks, we're going into phase 2 really quickly, which restores his health and gives him a ton of new moves. It's pretty difficult to do phase 2 anywhere as fast as the first phase. He has more unblockable attacks to dodge, as well as some unpredictable long-range follow-ups to his regular combos that come out a bit too quickly to easily deflect, and I couldn't figure out a way to tell if he'd use it or not. Deflecting hits during long combos does really good damage to his guard meter, but it's pretty tricky to protect my own guard if I'm trying to deflect all of his attacks rather than dodge them. So I did get guard broken near the end of the fight, but I've managed to parry so many attacks that I only need to land one more deflect to bring him to his knees and finish the boss well before he would have died to HP damage from attacks. Given my very slim little slice of internet clout, I've never had a company approach me to play their game before, and I had a lot of fun mastering the demo they sent me, and I'm hoping their game turns out well because I want to play it. I feel like I'm saying too many nice things for someone who isn't reading some kind of ad script. These are just my honest thoughts. I want to be very clear though, I do accept money. Please.